This morning on the new show, we're going to be talking about Dan Ashworth. Manchester United have made a formal approach and he is on gardening leave with Newcastle. But it's going to take a lot of money to actually get him to start work at United. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about a report coming out from the Athletic as well about Casemiro and the fact that is he past his best and are his legs gone? So we'll get into that as well. And Kobbie Mainoo was of interest of England. Gareth Southgate is keeping a strong eye on him and potentially going to be looking to bring him to the Euros in the summer. And we'll talk about the implications of that as well. Let's get right into it. So, of course, we're going to start with Dan Ashworth. And obviously, Manchester United in the past 24 hours have made a formal approach to Newcastle in relation to the acquisition of Dan Ashworth. It's coming out from James Ducker in the Telegraph. He's got the exclusive on it. And, I mean, it's a big blow for Newcastle, you would have to say. And it's absolutely fantastic from a United standpoint that he is going to be the director of football. Now, of course, the main issue here that we're talking about is the gardening leave. And Fabrizio Romano has been talking about that as well. Obviously, Fabrizio is up to speed on everything. He said everything is agreed between Manchester United and Dan Ashworth. The contract is ready. United and Newcastle must agree on the compensation, and then Ashworth can begin work. Now, I mean, all of the cards are in Newcastle's hands here. Obviously, this is a major scoop for Manchester United, and one that Newcastle will be very disappointed with. I mean, I can't pretend that I knew an awful lot about him. I had heard of him. I knew of the work he'd done at Brighton and so on and so forth. But hearing some of the reports that I've been reading over the last few days and some of the videos that I've been watching online, you know, obviously Rio Ferdinand talks very highly of them as well. He seems to be the real deal and the main, I suppose, candidate for any team to be going out and trying to get. He would be top of the list by the looks of things. It's a huge blow to Newcastle, so they can demand as much money as they want. This gardening leave could potentially run on for more than 12 months. I think there was reports of up to maybe 15 to 20 months, I think, of gardening leave. He could, you know, Newcastle could make him have to serve. Now, obviously, there is compensation that will bring that down. Now, Manchester United are going to have to pay a pretty penny. There's been talks of upwards of €10 million that United will have to pay to actually reduce that gardening leave, so he will be in place for the summer transfer window. Now, my opinion on this is, I mean, if Newcastle are looking for 10 million, and there can be some negotiations there between the two clubs, Manchester United can go, well, look, we have to pay his wages, or you don't have to pay his wages anymore, let's reduce it down, let's get a deal worked on. However, I mean, if we're looking at going into the summer transfer window and spending 150 million, 200 million, whatever it may be, it's a drop in the bucket compared to a 10 million technically release clause for somebody like Dan Ashworth. And if you're going to be going and spending 150 million in the summer transfer window, surely you want to spend that in the right way. And if Dan Ashworth is in place before the transfer window, you have a better opportunity to spend that money wisely. And I think that's the most important thing here. Time is running out for Manchester United. In a sense, you know, we've had so much mismanagement over the last few years, and we've been poor in the transfer window, and, you know, we've bought wrong and we've sold badly and so on and so forth. I think paying 10 million is absolutely nothing to get somebody like Dan Ashworth in before the summer transfer window and really make a claim and go at it. And I mean, if Jim Ratcliffe is going to be coming in and looking to make changes as quickly as possible, I mean, we heard reports once, you know, basically he won the race, that he's not going to be hanging around. He's 71 years of age. He doesn't want to be, you know, reluctant to make the decisions. He wants to get a new stadium built. He wants to, you know, revitalise the team. And I think he's not going to want to wait 15 to 20 months for Dan Ashworth to be available just because there's a 10 million fee above his head to get him out of Newcastle. So I think it's probably going to get done. I think United will pay the fee, and I think we will have him in place before the summer. And I think it can only be a positive because obviously the mismanagement that we've had over the past 10 years is quite clear to see. So long may it continue, you know, all of these positive stories coming out, long may they continue, and let's hope they can get done as quickly as possible. Now, let's talk about Casemiro, and the Athletic have brought out a report about him, questioning whether he's actually passed it or not, and, you know, some of the maybe frailties that we're seeing in his game over the last few months. And to be honest with you, I have to agree with an awful lot of it. They're going into, obviously, the yellow cards that he's getting, and there's been a lot of criticism from a number of pundits, obviously after the game against Luton, Jamie Redknapp was speaking about it. Jamie Carragher has been speaking in the last week about him as well. And even Gary Neville said that, the discipline, the on-field discipline needs to improve for Manchester United. And didn't really specifically go in about Casemiro, mentioned him and Harry Maguire as well. If we're looking at Casemiro playing and picking up these yellow cards, I think he's got 4 yellow cards in 7 or 8 games, something like that. It's quite clear that he's after losing a yard of pace. I think that's fair to say. Now what we do have to take into consideration as well is he had a pretty serious hamstring injury back in, was it October, November time? Kept him out for 3 months pretty much. So he probably still is on the mend, but I think it's quite clear to see, even the tackles that he's making, it's trying to recover the ball so the opposition player doesn't dribble past him the majority of the time. And that is the most clear indication that a player has lost maybe a turn of pace. Now look, he's 32 years of age as well, so it's understandable. When it comes to that area of the field, don't get me wrong, I love Casemiro, I really, really do. But it is an area that we need to look to improve on. Now, is it number one priority? I think it's up there with being one of the top priorities. Centre back, centre midfield and centre forward, spine of the team. Now again, look, Rasmus Højlund, centre forward, is banging in goals, but he's the only out-and-out striker we've got. So I think Casemiro's position is one that could be improved. And it's probably an unfair word, but I think we do need to go into the transfer market and look at another defensive midfielder. Casemiro's 32 years of age. I think he's got 18 months left on his contract. So do Manchester United cash in this summer? I think he's actually got more than 18 months left on his contract, whatever it may be. I would probably like to see him stay another 12 months, I have to say. If we go out and sign a young, hungry, established DM in the summer, I would like Casemiro to stay for a further 12 months just to kind of see the transition through, and maybe the new guy can learn off of Casemiro and so on and so forth. And Casemiro could still have an awful lot to offer with a squad role. And I think that's probably what we're looking at now. And I think the over-reliance on ageing players at Manchester United is something we do need to be concerned about. Casemiro, Raphael Varane, Harry Maguire is the wrong side of 30 now. These are all areas, not of concern, but areas that you do look to improve on as much as you possibly can. Is Casemiro past his best? Yes, I think it's quite clear to say from a player who never got a red card in his whole career, coming to Manchester United, once he's past his best, gets sent off twice last season, or was it 3 times? I'm not quite sure. I think 3 suspensions, 2 red cards. It is an area we do need to improve on. I love Casemiro. I want him to stay for another 12 months. I think summer 2025 is probably the best time for Casemiro to move on. But United do need to go and look to improve that area of the field in this transfer window and try and get the transition between Casemiro and whoever the new DM may be over the next maybe 12 to 18 months. And I think that would be the right thing to do. Now, finally, we're going to talk about Kobbie Mainoo. And obviously, he's been in scintillating form for Manchester United. Pretty much the number one name, or the first name on the team sheet you would expect with Erik ten Hag, given his recent performances. He's been absolutely fantastic. He really, really has. And such a young kid with such great composure, an experienced head on his shoulders. I was very, very critical of Manchester United's lack of composure on the ball against Luton on the weekend. And he was the only real player, him and probably Johnny Evans in the second half, that looked like they had, the only 2 players with any bit of composure, you would have to say. And for such a young player to be doing it so frequently for Manchester United is absolutely fantastic. Now, obviously there's been reports suggesting, England are going to be coming knocking for him. Obviously the Euros are coming up in the summer, and Gareth Southgate, it looks like it's going to be his last competition as England manager. But according to Matt Hughes in the Daily Mail, Gareth Southgate is closely monitoring the performances of Kobbie Mainoo and 2 more players for March's international games amid concerns over the form of Calvin Phillips. So, look, do I want Kobbie Mainoo to go and play for England? No, because I'm not an England supporter. I'm not from England. So I've got a little bit of selfishness there that I can ask, or that I can fall back on. he will eventually play for England, it looks like. Now, again, I reported it a couple of weeks back that Ghana are potentially looking at him as well. And he can represent Ghana if he wishes to do so. Again, that's going to be his decision, which one he chooses. Which one would I like him to play for, Ghana or for England? I mean, from an Irish standpoint, I think it would be quite funny that England lose out on a top player to Ghana, considering what England have done to Ireland over the past few years with Declan Rice and Jack Grealish. However, I think from a Manchester United standpoint, I think it would be more beneficial as a United fan that Kobbie Mainoo would play for England. That way we wouldn't lose him for the African Cup of Nations every 2 years, I think. So, look, he's got a decision to make. He will be playing for England, whether it is in the Euros. I think he will go to the Euros, I have to say. I don't think he should. I think it's probably a bit early for him. But I do think Gareth Southgate, I think he's better than, he's better than Calvin Phillips. He's better than Jordan Henderson. If I was Gareth Southgate, my three in midfield would be Declan Rice, Kobbie Mainoo and Jude Bellingham. I mean, that's a sensational midfield three, you would have to say. But it remains to be seen what happens. I don't want him to go. I want him to not get ahead of himself too much. But if we're talking about the international games in March and his name is already coming up, then you would be expecting he's probably going to get brought to the Euros in the summer. But let me know what you think in the comment section below, guys, on all the points we've been talking about. Please smash a like on the video. Hit subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'll be back tonight from 8 o'clock for the news show as always. And until then, have a great day and I'll see you on the next one.